That's right.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Chris and Tim. So just if you happen to be watching this show, just let you know that we actually have two more segments that comes before that. And the first one we talk about versatility, that how important it is to build your tab, your visibility layer on a platform that accommodates different medias, different speeds, different connectivities. And then on the second segment, we talk about the importance of Made in America, having a commitment to manufacturing close to home and no compromise. And this time, Chris, what are we going to be talking about today? This time that I think actually is also equally important.
Right. No, absolutely. With the flexibilities we talked about earlier, 110, 40, 100 gig, and then guaranteeing the manufacturing process and making sure the quality's there. The next is, really talking about, the zero failure factor, and also delivering, guaranteeing that you have the lowest dB loss possible in fiber environment. So, a couple things that I'd like to talk about today. One is the relationship to 40 and 100 gig applications. So in 40 gig applications, you have a couple options. And what I like to focus on is really the multi-mode fiber options, and which is very new to a lot of folks. We did a webinar with a Palo Alto group and asked how many people have worked with a 40 gigabit SR4 or 100 gig SR4. And only about 9% of the audience actually ever touched that type of equipment before. So when you're looking at 40 gig, you have a couple options with multi-mode fiber. So one of them is 40 gigabit BiDi. And what that is, 40 gigabit BiDi allows you to run 40 gigs over 2-strand multi-mode OM3, OM4, 50 micron fiber. So it allows you to utilize a 2-strand fiber technology, and it allows you to do bi-directional communication over a simplex, single piece of fiber. And traditionally with fiber, it's always one direction. So, for us, with the 40 gig BiDi being a Cisco technology that's been brought out, we are a Cisco partner and certified with them, and we have 40 gigabit BiDi tabs specifically designed to actually copy off the different wavelengths in each direction, providing you the ability to get 100% visibility and a copy of that traffic. And this is something that we're seeing a lot of financials. We're starting to see in larger data centers. And if someone's a Cisco shop, it really does make a lot of sense to look at the 40 gig BiDi technology to utilize your 2-strand fiber environment. The other environment for 40 gig multi-mode is what's called a 40 gig SR4, and that uses a standard called MPO 12 for the connector. So here's an example of a MPO 12 connector. This has 12 fibers in it, and you're actually utilizing 8 of these fibers within this small connector here. So with that, you're taking 8 strands running 10 gig. You're running 4 10 gig channels on the transmit side and 4 10 gigs on the receive side. So it's critical that you're utilizing, and let me show you some a tap here. Again, it's hard to see the connectors because they're so small, but as you can imagine, it's very critical that when you're dealing with a total of 8 fibers that you're transmitting traffic over, that you're minimizing dB loss. So there's a couple things we do for the 40 gig SR4 and 100 gig SR4 application, is that we standardize on US Connect's MTP connectors. So any time you can minimize dB loss in the fiber environment, that's critical, especially for a fiber tap, right? You want to make sure that you have the utmost quality. So there's a couple patents that US Connect holds on their connectors, and they're actually a US company as well. And one of the things that they do is they have a technology that allows you to be able to guarantee the mating of the connectors together, so that when you mate together the cable to the connector, that you're guaranteeing that you have the best connection possible, and that you can disconnect and reconnect, and guarantee that performance. So again, choosing the right connector is very critical, especially in these higher speeds. And we've also done the same thing on the MPO 24 connectors, which is for your 100 gigabit SR10 applications. Here, again, you have same connector, but this time you're actually having 24 fibers within this cable, and you're using 20 of those fibers, 10 gig over each lane. So again, when you look at going into a modular system like ours, it's critical that you're using the best connectors possible, that you're utilizing prism-based, not fuse-based splitters, to guarantee that you're not going to get bit rate errors on the high-speed environment. So it's really comes down to some basics, and we really put together the most optimal components, guaranteeing performance and helping minimize dB loss, which in the 40-100 gig arena is absolutely critical in your high-speed networks.
Just a reminder to our viewers that when you get to this level of performance, a failure, a degradation in performance is a failure. We're not talking about catastrophic failure now.
Right, and it's when you look at putting this together, really goes back to, as we talked about in the other session, the manufacturing process as well. And so again, these are the little things that we focused on. And we've been doing this. My partner Jerry Diller and I actually been in the tapping business for over 30 years. And so everything we do, and over these years we've learned a lot, and we've taken that expertise, and we really put it into every single product that we design and manufacture. So so those little things. Well, a connector is a connector. It's just an MPO. Why do I need to go with a US Connect MTP versus I can save a couple pennies, and that's one of the things you want to be careful about is you really want to understand what's being used, and make sure that you're asking your tap vendor how do you assemble this, how do you what type of parts are you using, how do you do your testing. And when we get into a test lab, we always shine. So we're very proud of that, and we're going to continue to do that with all our products.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that part of what you're buying from Garland Technology is just all that years of experience, and before you even talk about the design and the manufacturing product, just the selection of components, right? Knowing which vendor is reliable and which vendor is has integrity. I mean, you're buying that too.
And what I get, being a manufacturer, we get I can't even tell you how many emails for components and everything. Well, you can save $1 here, save 50% here. We've gone through all those pains and sufferings, and Jerry and I have made a decision that we're not going to ever compromise quality to save a couple pennies, save a couple dollars. It's not worth it, and we can't. You know what I mean? We have failures, it's going to be, difficult to gain that confidence of our customer.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just we've learned over the years, and we know what it takes, and we don't just go out and say, hey, we can now save some money. And as we all know, that's sometimes happens, especially as companies grow and they get bigger. They sometimes look at more of the profit margin than the balance that quality piece. And so we have a lot of suppliers we work with that we've worked with for many years. They know our standards, and we don't accept anything below them. And we ship stuff back if it's not to our standards. And so it's that's something that we bring to the table.
I think that's important. I think ultimately the customer, your customer, our viewers, they have to make their own decision. They have to decide whose product they should buy, and there are quality vendors out there, no doubt about that. But I think what we're talking about is that you're making decision as well. You're making buying decision as well when it comes to your vendor. And your experience is that when someone comes to you and says, I have a cheaper product, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, it's just cheap. Right? And so that's a trap that we don't want to fall into, because after all, you're building a company, you're building a reputation, and you have this reputation and you want to maintain it. Right. And and it's just not you, it's the whole team. Talk about your company a little bit. We haven't done that.
Yeah, absolutely. As we mentioned, I think we might have mentioned, but we got started over 5 years ago. So very excited and proud of that. We have a great team. Our company name, which I don't know if I mentioned before, but Jerry Dillard, our CTO and co-founder, he's based out of Garland, Texas, and that's where the name originally came from. So we're now in the Dallas area, Richardson, there's a lot of tech companies in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
So our engineering, manufacturing, R&D, all logistics is out of the Dallas, Texas area. And I'm born and bred in Buffalo, New York, sunny and shiny, awesome summers. We get a little snow once in a while. But we're, I'm very proud to be, we opened up a new headquarters downtown Buffalo. I'm a city guy living in the city, and, love the fact that we're growing a tech business here in Buffalo, and our sales, marketing, finances is based out of Buffalo. And then we have a tech support office as well for pre-post sales out of Frankfurt, Germany. So, we're having a lot of fun, have a great team. And, we're growing, we're expanding. So, even this year, next half of the year, I think we'll be adding on another, probably 5-10 people. So it's just, we're having a great time. We're developing some great relationships with distributors, partners internationally. And, we're growing, and couldn't be more excited at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and I really admire your,
I have my tap room over here, Denny.
yeah. I'm just thinking that there's a barrel behind that wall that it does never dry, right? Yeah. So and by the way, one thing I would like to mention is that I really admire your dedication and your commitment to being a tap only company, with no compromise. This is what you sell. You're not trying to sell tools. You're actually trying to enable sales for tools. So that's why you have so many good partners out there. And and just to remind everyone, that's how I knew Chris. I knew Chris because I was more or less on the tool side, and Tap was my partner. I mean, Chris was my partner. You were with a different company then, and you still. But the thing that I hate you is that you still have the same amount of hair.
I don't know though. It's moving up a little.
Okay, well, I think we still have Tim on the show, so I'm gonna give him a little bit of time. Tim, it's time for us to talk about Garland now.
Well, I've known Chris a long time. I knew when he started back in the old days. I've always considered him like my brother from another mother, because we both have the same dedication. I've been trying to convince people to get real visibility in their network going all the way back into 1970s. and I was pretty instrumental in getting the first Ethernet tap done. So one thing that Chris has done, and I know it's repetitive, but quality is essential. Electrons are very, very composed. They'll do whatever you tell them to do. They'll run through small wire, crappy connections and all that. But when you're doing with protons or photons, however you want to look at it, they're not that nice. They want a quality environment. And I've seen a situation with a large company here not too many months ago, but less than a year ago, and they had bought a whole bunch of cables from another manufacturer from overseas, and before we were halfway through them, they threw them all away. They sent them all back because the connectors weren't quality. When you put a connector in, it locks. When you get one from Garland, these guys were, as Chris was saying earlier, they wobbled around, and we were finding 20 dB loss in some of these cables. They weren't even 50 feet long. So quality, when you're dealing with photons, you're dealing with the world of optics. You have to have quality. And Chris has gone way out. Chris and Jerry both, I know both of them very well. And they go way out of their way to make sure that it's technically competent, because the smallest thing can be a killer when you're dealing with the fibers. And quality is essential. And you want a company that's been like Chris, they've been well tested. Let me put it that way. And anybody that's got a tap on the wall is a pretty good guy anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna close the show. Thanks again, Chris. Really, you've been so busy. It's so hard to get together with you. But I say this every time: we got to do more of this.
He promised.
I know.
Chris has promised we're going to do more.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to close by showing Garland Technology website. You should go visit them, garlandtechnology.com. And there's a lot of really good information in there, including testimonial from customers. So with that, I'm going to close the show. Thanks again. And thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.